Hey guys, what's going on? It's Coach Callum here at Strong. I'm all alone today uh, because we closed the gym. There's a lot of fun health concern going on in the world right now with the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So I'm going to use it as an opportunity to do some stuff that I've been putting off for a long time, including making some fun uh, they're not instructional videos, but they're not uninstructional videos. Uh, so this is more just like my thoughts and ramblings about the other aspects of health and fitness that are often overlooked. There's a huge focus, especially in the fitness industry, surprisingly, on exercise, right? And on, let's say, like losing weight or losing body fat. And we often have such a intense focus on that particular aspect of people's lives that we tend to overlook a lot of like other very important pieces of the equation. So what I'm going to do today is write a couple of semi-useless things on the board behind me here that are about the other things that I think really differentiate what we do here at Strong from other personal training, but also the reason that the majority of the people that come to see us don't typically go on to see anyone else afterwards. Uh, I think that one of the keys to a successful long-term relationship with people as it relates to their health is really understanding that there's more to it than just the exercises that you're writing down or just the time that it took you to complete the circuit or whatever it is. So these are opinions, these are far from facts. These are just things that I've noticed anecdotally over the past, 8 years of doing this, that I am going to hopefully explain at least reasonably well. So if you have any questions about anything that you see in this video, if you disagree with me, awesome. Disagree with me as much as you want in the comments, and let's have a good argument about it, because I think that'll be a lot of fun, because I have nothing else to do. I am going to be sitting at home playing video games if I'm not arguing with you about why I think my idea is good. The first thing that we're going to do, this is probably a concept that you might actually be familiar with already, and it's called the pillars of health. And typically, when people, especially when personal trainers talk about the pillars of health, what they're talking about are sort of three main things, which is exercise, sleep, and nutrition. Also, I apologize. This video is going to be unedited, so bear with me. You might see me do something stupid. So, exercise, nutrition, and sleep. These are our pillars of health. I don't know if you can read that, but whatever. So, we've got our three sort of commonly accepted pillars of health, which are exercise, nutrition, and sleep. And these are things that fitness professionals and personal trainers especially really like to harp on as sort of the most important things if you want to, lose weight and feel good and, whatever. And there's a ton of focus spent on manipulating these three components of a healthy life. That said, there is nothing wrong with these three components. If you don't exercise regularly, you're probably not going to feel very good. If you don't eat well based on what your body wants and needs, probably won't feel very good. If you don't sleep well, not even probably, you will not feel very good. So in a lot of ways, this isn't so bad, right? I think there's just a lot of room to expand on it, right? And I think that there's more to the story than simply manipulating your exercise, your nutrition, and your sleep in order to help somebody actually get results that are going to last for the long term. So I think that one of the things that's really important to talk about here are the pieces that always take place outside of the gym. And those are things like relationships, a really, really important one. If you don't have good relationships, if your relationships aren't supportive, if your relationships are abusive, if your relationships are just negative in general and they encourage you to do things that aren't good for you or that don't make you feel good, like these are not things that you're going to be able to easily work around with exercise, sleep, and nutrition. If you don't take care of the relationships and the people that you're spending the most time with, right, and you don't work to cultivate that so that it's actually a productive, enjoyable thing for you, then it's going to be really difficult to see results in the gym, right? So one of the key things that I like to focus on in my sessions with people is like when we're in between sets, right? I've got a minute and a half, 2 minutes sometimes, maybe up to 5 depending on the program, where we can have a good conversation about what's going on outside of the gym for you, right? And part of that conversation might be, who are you spending the most time with, right? You need to look at the circle of friends that you keep and the partner that you choose and the relationship that you have with your parents and whatever. And you need to really understand like how your interpretation of those relationships is going to affect the rest of your life, right? Because if something is happening at home that's really negative and it makes you not want to go home, right? It's going to be really challenging for you to sleep well, right? It's going to be harder for you to eat well because you're not going to want to spend the time there to actually be able to cook. So it's really important to understand how all of these things play off one another, right? If you don't understand how your sleep affects your relationships, right? It's going to be really challenging to have better relationships if you're always exhausted, right? If you don't sleep well, you're probably not going to make very good decisions for what you're eating, right? Because when you're tired, hormonally, you're creating more cortisol. When you create more cortisol, you're more stressed out, right? When you're more stressed out, you're going to lean more towards more high carbohydrate, high sugar foods, which are very comforting because they create serotonin, right? And the more serotonin you have, right, the better you feel, you're kind of happy, and typically you're more lethargic and tired. And if you're more lethargic and tired, what's the likelihood that you're going to want to go and exercise? It's probably pretty low, right? So it's important to understand that these are the pillars of health, because if you take one away, it's unlikely that you're going to be very healthy, because all of them play off of each other, right? And there's actually at least one more here that I can think of. And with this, like, if you have an idea or you think I've missed something here, I would love to hear your opinions on it, because I think it's really important that as I develop as a coach and as I have more conversations with people, if I'm missing something, I can't improve if you don't help me improve. So if you have a good idea and you think I've missed something here, let's talk. So the next one that we're going to talk about here is what I think, it's hard to say that any of these are the most important one, but I think it's the most important one. I don't know if you can read that. That says purpose. The most interesting thing about people is that people with purpose tend to have better relationships, better sleep, better nutrition, and exercise more regularly. I like to think of purpose as the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. The thing that gets you out of bed in the morning is your, let's call it the number one occupation for you. And an occupation doesn't have to be work, but if you can do work that you're very interested in, chances are you're going to be more fulfilled, you're going to be happier, you're going to be a better partner, you're going to sleep better at night, you're going to eat better, and you're going to exercise more regularly, because the purpose or the thing that you do for work is what you're going to spend the majority of your waking hours doing. So, why, as a personal trainer, am I going to spend a lot of time in our sessions talking about purpose? If you hate your boss, and you hate going into work, the likelihood that you're going to come into the gym after work and have a productive session is very low. I have a difficult time helping people motivate themselves to do anything positive when they feel like they're not appreciated at work, they don't like what they do, or they don't like the people that they work for. So if you don't spend some time addressing what it is that you actually want to do, what your purpose is, if you're not going to put the work in to actually figure out what that is, it's going to be really difficult for you to get a handle on the rest of this stuff. It's usually not until you start addressing this problem, right? Especially if you're unhappy. If you're not addressing this problem, it's very, very challenging to actually make any positive changes elsewhere. And here's my thoughts on what the reason is. Whatever the pillar is that you're trying to change, it's important to understand. Actually, I'm just going to erase this. Everybody got that? Exercise, nutrition, sleep, relationships, purpose. Those are our pillars. So all of this has an overarching theme. And that theme is called stress management. And stress behaves much like what we would call a bell curve, right? So, we'll call this low stress, and this high stress, right? So, this will be high performance, and this will be low performance, okay? So, performance, stress. So, the way that this works, stress is on a bell curve. So, if you have too little stress, right, not enough things to do, you're not interested, you're bored, right, you're not going to perform very well. So, the curve kind of starts here. But, if you have too much stress, you're overwhelmed, you're overworked, you're tired, right? You won't make good decisions either. You're also not going to perform well. You're going to end up here. So the stress curve goes something like this. It's a bell curve. So what we need as people is an adequate amount of stress so that we're not bored, we're engaged, we're interested, we feel productive, we feel like we're doing things that are important to us, but not so much stress, right, that we're actually overwhelmed, overworked, overtired, not sleeping well, right? So we need to fall somewhere between here and here in pretty much every area of our life. So, if we have 5 pillars of exercise, nutrition, sleep, relationships, and purpose, if all 5 of those pillars fall somewhere in that bracket, we're going to be fairly happy. If you are living a life that's in balance, things typically feel much easier. They feel like they're working. They feel like you're moving forward and progressing. You feel like you're capable of meeting the demands of your life, right? You feel like you're able to rise to the occasion and able to take on a challenge. So when it comes time to change something, you actually feel like you have the ability to do so. So what we want to think about here is, Where are you now with all 5 of those pillars? Take a moment and really think about this, because if you have a purpose, or your work, let's say, is not engaging, and you're bored and you're totally disinterested, it's probably going to fall somewhere here. When you do that, when something falls outside of that bracket where we're good, and now all of a sudden we hate our work, we do something on the other side to balance out. Which means that we might do something on this end that overcorrects and is more interesting and more engaging, which could be something like, if we feel here, for example, like we don't have control over our work situation and we're unhappy, on this side, we might overexert our control on things, right? Where all of a sudden, we're heavily restricting what we're eating and are working out 7 days a week because it's the one thing that we find interesting or engaging, right? And when you're working out 7 days a week and you're heavily restricting what it is that you're eating, the likelihood of you seeing like, you know, an overarching, fulfilling life is pretty low, right? So our goal with all of this is we want to try and get you into the middle as much as we can, right? I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to keep talking. So I've been talking for 15 minutes now. It's probably the longest I've ever talked in a room by myself. So I'm going to drink this coffee. And I'll come back to this once I've collected my thoughts. So, anytime, you know what? I don't love it.